and welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. Completely screwed over my intro there. But I'm probably thrown off by the fact that the stupid StreamYard thing still hasn't fixed itself out. No idea why, no idea what the deal is. So let me just fix it the only way I know how, by introducing my guest. And when I say guest, he's pretty much become a regular on this show at this point. It's pretty much become a two-man show at this point, with the amount of times I keep bringing this guy on because I love having him here. It's the Snark Yeti. And there we go. Now we finally fixed now everyone can finally see the background that I chose.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. Yeah, you could say I'm your personal favorite guest of all time. Personal favorite show, personal favorite, guest.
Yeah, well, I think the fact that I keep
We'll talk.
asking you to come here, to come back,
It's up for discussion.
Now, as per usual, we start off with the birthday section. This week, counting from the 1st till the 7th of November, it's a pretty underwhelming list, if I'm being quite honest. Remember how last week I was a little bit upset that Sora wasn't going to be on because a lot of his favorite people were on it?
Mm-hmm.
This week, however, I saw these two guys on the list, and I'm like, ooh, I like these guys. I want to keep these guys on the list. I hope there aren't too many big ones, too many big names on the list today, and looks like I got my wish, but I'm not sure the way I wanted to, because, well, there really aren't a lot of people today, but I suppose it's all the better. So let's start off with, on the 2nd of November, we have Mr. Michael Kerrigan. And look, some dogs are excited about this guy. He's a director. He directed Battlefield, a classic series episode featuring Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Eldred as the Doctor and Ace, and also featuring Jean Marsh as Morgan Le Fay and Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier. He also directed 2 Sarah Jane Adventures episodes, namely The Day of the Clown and Secrets of the Stars. Really good episodes, if you ask me. And on the 3rd of November, this is kind of weird how it sort of lined up with the topic of today's episode. Richard Herndl, who obviously will play a replacement First Doctor in the 5 Doctors, an episode we are kind of about to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
On the 4th of November, we have, I really hope I get this right, Bear McCausland. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing the name. Yeah, he played this kid in the Torchwood 5-part Children of Earth. Yeah, he was basically Captain Jack's grandson. So, yeah, it was a pretty major moment. And actually, this moment right here, one of the picture doesn't really say it, but one of the saddest and most tragic moments in Doctor Who history, and it was on a spin-off show, so take that for what it is. Also on the 4th, we have Robin Moore. Again, apologize for mispronouncing the name. She played a main character, June Turner, in the K9 spin-off show. Remember, not the K9, the good K9 show that you like, the other K9 show that no one ever watched. She basically, from the list that I have in front of me, she was in every single episode. So gotta put her on the list, obviously. On November 5th, we have Andrew. Hold on. Andrew Hayden Smith. Sorry, my bad. He played Jake Simmons in the alternate Earth. You know, with the Cybermen, the Cybermen 2-parter, and then the other Cybermen episode, which saw the departure of Rose Tyler. He was also in the Big Finish episode. And also, gotta recommend, he was in the Doctor Who Weakest Link episode. If you ever If you ever like Doctor Who and The Weakest Link, they did a Doctor Who themed episode of The Weakest Link. Highly, highly recommend checking it out. You might not believe who won that. And also on the 5th, we have Chris Edison, not to be confused with, well, there goes my joke. Yeah, Chris Edison, he was Missy's henchman in that one Capaldi season. Remember when he was in the afterlife thing, the promised land, whatever the hell that thing was called. So yeah, he was there, and this he now he's finally move on to the two guys that I was really excited to have on this list today. On November 7th, we have several people, starting off with Derek Francis, as seen in this picture right here. He played Caesar Nero in The Romans, a William Hartnell era episode from season 2, and one of my favorite historical episodes from that era. It's just a really funny episode, and he plays a really funny take on Caesar Nero that most likely wouldn't be appropriate by today's standards. So why? Just watch the episode and you'll understand exactly why. Also on the 7th of November, hold on, John Stratton. John Stratton, he played the character Shockeye in The Two Doctors, another multi-doctor story crossover. If he looks like a butcher, that's more or less what he was. I actually like The Two Doctors, despite some of the issues with it. I like this guy. I like this guy's character. Side note, he literally tried to eat Harry in the episode, and not in a fun way. And rounding out of our list, two more. We only got two more. We have also on the 7th, we have Lindsay Duncan. She played the character Adelaide Brooke in The Waters of Mars, a pseudo companion, one might say. And finally, also on the 7th, we have Barney Harwood or Harewood. Again, I apologize for mispronouncing the name. He was a TV presenter in the CBBC show Totally Doctor Who, which was a thing for a while. So I suppose we gotta mention him at one point or another. So the large list of people we have today. Thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you. Now, as one knows at this point, if you're watching this on the day that it comes out, we are in a brand new month. A brand new month, the month of November, or as some people like to call it, Whovember, the month of Doctor Who, the month where Doctor Who started, essentially. The debut of the show on November 23rd. The anniversary is later this month. So, in celebration of the month of Doctor Who, and also in slight celebration of The Power of the Doctor, which came out a couple of weeks ago, I decided why not just have this whole month focused mainly around the anniversaries of Doctor Who, starting, of course, with the 5 Doctors, as seen in the picture in the thumbnail. Now, of course, obviously, I could have gone with the first anniversary episode, The 3 Doctors, but let me just clue you in on my mindset. A couple of months ago, I did a month entirely dedicated to the Sea Devils, where we were made to celebrate the release of the Legend of the Sea Devils, the Jodie Whittaker's penultimate episode. Now, in the classic series, only 2 Doctors, oddly enough, have actually faced the Sea Devils during their runtime. The 3rd Doctor and the 5th Doctor. Similarly, the 3rd Doctor and the 5th Doctor have experienced a decade anniversary episode, which was a multi-Doctor story in the 3 Doctors and the 5 Doctors. So, this is how my brain was working at the time. I said, okay, for the Sea Devils one, let's just talk about the 3rd Doctor one. And for the anniversary one, let's just talk about the 5th Doctor one. You know, give and take. And, well, here we are.
Sure.
So, Mr. Snark, you watched the episode. What did you think about it?
I liked it. I'm thinking you also had me watch the Three Doctors a couple of months back, but I
For a
probably
completely
enjoyed,
different topic,
yeah,
by the way.
something completely different. But yes, I don't think I like this one as much as I like the Three Doctors. I think it might be because just with William Hartnell not being there, it maybe didn't quite feel the same with that new guy. Happy birthday to him, by the way. I'm sure he's still celebrating today.
Well, I mean, yeah, you know,
Be interesting if we did. Uh,
he passed
yeah.
away. He passed away about a year after this special came out, by the way,
Oh my God.
and he was
Uh,
and he was 2 years younger than actual William Hartnell, which
really?
was an interesting casting because he was around the same age that Bill Hartnell was.
Well, I remember in that special, Hartnell, he never even got on set, right? Like he was just filmed from a
Yeah,
different place or whatever. He sat down, I think, the entire time.
yeah, because he had problems memorizing his lines at that time. Really, the only possible way they could have had him on the episode was if he was just sitting in front of a teleprompter reading the lines out loud because
Right.
he could not memorize lines anymore. But he really, really wanted to be there. Here's the thing: William Hartnell is the OG Doctor Who fan. Like he loved the show. He was the
Hmm.
first Doctor, and he was the first super fan of the show, in a way.
Sure.
So that's
Uh,
what he. Yeah.
aside from that's really like my only critique. I just didn't feel like the Fifth Doctor really did too much in the thing. But I loved the Second Doctor in this
Hmm.
episode. Um, and again, having Tom Baker there for two scenes basically, and never with anybody else, just with Romana. Uh,
Well, the, mainly when the 20th anniversary season was coming along, the Fourth Doctor himself, Tom Baker, actually wrote a script of what he wanted the special to be,
mhm.
which was mainly centered around him. The other doctors were really in it, and the other doctors were like, "No, no, no, sir, we were here before you. We deserve to be in this as much as you."
Yeah,
And so, basically, the showrunners pretty much wrote a script that barely had Tom Baker in it, which is why if you see in this picture, that's not really Tom Baker. That's a Tom Baker wax dummy from the wax museum.
when you showed me this picture earlier, I thought that Tom Baker was dead in that picture, and they were having a laugh, Weekend at Bernie style, with his corpse because he looked dead. That's why I wanted that picture brought up again. I thought that was hilarious. Like it's like I don't think those four guys like Tom Baker at all because that is
Well,
not Tom Baker.
I mean,
He looks like a
the,
zombie there.
the other doctors are today on relative good terms with him, but at the time, this was a pretty big clash between uh, the four doctors at the time.
Now, some things I absolutely love about this episode. One, the absolute cheesiness of the Superman style triangle that traps all the doctors and the
Ah,
pictures that take them. I love that. The first time I saw it or whatever, I started howling watching that first doctor run in that field. So funny. And of course,
now,
K9's there too.
so I'm guessing you watched the version that's on BritBox, right?
I would have, yeah.
Because here's the thing: on the original release of it, before they modernized it, that triangle thing looked completely different. And I don't know
Yeah.
how, but somehow with 1980s visual effects, the original thing looked better than how it looks right now.
Right.
So I encourage you to at least try to seek out maybe a scene or two on YouTube featuring that.
Oh,
It doesn't even look like a triangle. It looks more like I guess the only example I can give is the sorting hat from Harry Potter, just constantly spinning around. And they also
hmm.
re-edited a lot of scenes uh, for this one in particular, which we'll talk about in a minute. But originally, what my plan was to just go beat by beat, scene by scene of this episode, like I did with episodes past. But
Sure.
since I didn't really have much luck with those, that's why I decided to have a guest on. So we'll just go try to break down this episode as much as possible. First of all, the episode starts on the Eye of Orion, which is sort of a continuation of the season finale of the previous season, which the King's Demons, which was an adventure with the Master, an introduction of a new companion, which was never seen again until his final episode, called Chameleon. The Doctor mentions going to see the Eye of Orion, and when the special actually starts, it opens with the Doctor in a completely brand new TARDIS console, brand new console room. Now, here is where I have to journey slightly into the Big Finish realm, because and this is a trilogy that I've listened to fairly recently. Uh, some reason in like 2019 or something like that, the Big Finish team finally decided it's time to give Chameleon his own trilogy after doing the Big Finish stuff for like 20 years with Doctor Who. After it took them 20 years to bring that character back into the forefront, and while I can't say that it actually makes that character good, the stories themselves are pretty engaging. And the last part of the trilogy actually sort of explains the opening of this episode, because through some chameleon related shenanigans, the TARDIS console room gets completely destroyed, which is why the Doctor has a brand new one at the opening of this episode. Now, obviously, real world implications. It's the 20th anniversary. They wanted to surprise the audience with a brand new console. They wanted to celebrate this momentous occasion, so they gave the Doctor a new console. But I like that the Big Finish crew actually decided to give a in-universe reason why the TARDIS console looked different in this episode. So yeah, that's all set up for going to the Eye of Orion. Everything seems peaceful. And what I like about this episode is that they waste no time jumping into the main story, they're jumping into the main action. We get to see someone pretending to be the first Doctor walking around a big, large garden on his own for some reason, because the first Doctor never actually traveled alone. There now again, expanded universe stuff. There is a short story called Roses that really just all it does is talk about the first Doctor traveling in that garden, being captured by the weird triangle special effect thing. I believe it's the only Doctor that actually has an expanded universe story explaining where that Doctor is in his own personal timeline when this happens. The other two Doctors could be anywhere, but this one we actually get a confirmation when this happened to him. So pretty interesting to note. Obviously, the fifth Doctor starts to feel bad about that. We get to see the second Doctor again with visiting the Brigadier. And obviously, they get captured as well. Followed closely by the third Doctor and Bessie. Bessie, the old car. Now, there's something interesting I like to point out about this scene here with the Brigadier.
Okay.
And this is going to be a bit of a tangent for me personally, so please just bear with me for a few minutes. In that scene, we see the Brigadier introduce the second Doctor to his replacement, Charles Crichton, Colonel Charles Crichton. Why this guy is significant to me is about a year ago, I did a Doctor Who trivia match, a Schmodown style inspired trivia match with a good friend of mine, Raiko. You know Raiko. We had him on the that one episode of the Companions that lasted way too long, so everyone had to leave.
Fellow Canadian, I believe, right?
Fellow Canadian. So basically, we did a whole thing. I won by TKO, but then we decided, just for the fun of it, let's just keep it going. Let's just roll with the rest of the questions. We get to my round 3 2-pointer, and Soda wrote the questions.
That's
Somehow
so
forgot to mention that somehow buried the lead. Soda wrote the questions, and the
phonetically.
2-point question was who was the Brigadier's replacement, which is this douche. And if you look at that, if you look at mine and Raiko's reactions, you were like, "That's a 2-pointer? It's a 10-pointer if I've ever seen one." The guy's in like 2.5 minutes of the episode. Why is this guy a 2-point question? It makes no sense. And
Will you ever forget who he is again, though? Probably not.
No, especially not on this episode. And I've never forgiven Soda for that stupid 2-pointer.
Good.
He keeps maintaining the excuse that he only wrote. Again, he never saw classic Doctor Who. I don't know why we allowed him to write the questions in the first place, but he never saw classic Doctor Who, and the only reason he decided to write him into a question is because, and this is a quote from him, this character has a very lengthy page on the Doctor Who wiki, so that's what he thought. He's an easy go-getter question, right? So I would just like to, if I may, I would just like to out my good friend Soda a
Yeah.
little bit further here. This is the actual wiki page. For hey, this is the wiki page. Charles Crichton. Okay, let me just
Mhm.
watch how many rolls I'm going to do with my mouse here.
Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
1. Sorry. 2, 3. That's it. This is this guy's entire wiki page. 3 rows with my mouse's roll thing. 1, 2, 3. And keep in mind,
Oh,
this ad right here takes up a large
that's true.
of the page. Okay? Now, for comparison's sake, this right here, this is the Brigadier's wiki page. Okay? This
The
is
most
the Brigadier's.
English name I've ever seen in my life.
Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart. The guy's name is longer than the other guy's wiki page. Okay?
And it's a
Now,
brigadier general, and he was knighted. Brigadier General Sir Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart. Oh my
yep,
God.
absolutely. Now, do you want to see what happens when I start scrolling down this web?
Yes, please. Oh my gosh.
It takes a while, doesn't it?
Mhm.
This, sir, is what I call a very lengthy wiki page.
Now that's a 2-point question.
Yeah, absolutely. A 2-point question would be, what is the Brigadier's full name?
Oh my
So,
God. You could probably add any name in there, and you'd probably be fine with it.
yeah. Soda, kindly shut your mouth about that stupid question from now on. Anyway, so tangent over. Talked about the first Doctor, second Doctor, third Doctor getting snatched away. And then suddenly Sarah Jane Smith popped up.
Yay!
The best companion ever. And obviously K9. And what I
I
love
thought you were
about this,
talking about K9.
what I love about the scene is that they're sort of trying to make a reference to the Twilight Zone. Danger! Doctor! Danger!
Oh, I think that's a Forbidden Planet, or which one's that? Oh, that's Danger Will Robinson, right?
Danger Will
Uh,
Robinson!
yeah, I forget what that thing's called, but yeah.
Danger! Doctor! Danger! We all love K9. Now on the Eye of Orion, the Doctor starts having more and more meltdowns. He leaves the planet, and then we're treated back to the Death Zone when, or rather where, First Doctor encounters Susan after leaving her on Earth in the 22nd century. Clearly, some time has passed for her, but they still recognize each other. And wouldn't you know it, not long after, They're being chased by a Dalek. Now, this Dalek specifically, this model, we talked about it in our Dalek ranking,
Ranking.
when
Yeah.
we ranked all the different designs for Daleks. Very famously, I said in that one, I do not like the look of this Dalek. I don't know what it is. They just took the common look for a 80s era Dalek and then just put all these red stuff on it. And I do not think it looks good.
Yeah, I didn't understand that kind of like almost that red plasticky stuff coming out of the gun there.
Me neither.
And yeah, I thought that was very jarring. It's like I don't know if they did that because they figured you'd never see it because of special effects or something like that, and then they just forgot about it and left it in. I have no idea, but it looks terrible.
It looks awful. I mean, I know at this that throughout the entirety of the classic era, mostly the Daleks were kind of plasticky, but this looks worse than any other. The gun just looks like a plastic toy gun.
Yeah,
They
it's
just
not great.
snapped on a Dalek, and this isn't an anniversary episode of all things. Not some random one-off in the middle of a season. This is a 20th anniversary episode. How did someone let that slip? But anyways, as seen in this image right here, they end up in a weird hole of mirrors, and they manage to trick the Dalek into shooting a energy beam into some of the mirrors until eventually it blows itself off.
Yeah.
That was a really cool moment for the Doctor and Susan.
Well, what is the name of the race that's inside the Dalek? I can never remember. The little
Well,
alien thing that's inside the Dalek.
I mean, it's a Dalek mutant.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, that little guy or whatever comes out when the Dalek explodes, and he's just freaking out. Was kind of, ooh, oh my god.
Yeah, it wasn't very often that you actually saw the Dalek mutants
Yeah.
in Dalek. Yeah, it's not like in the modern series where we pretty much see the Dalek mutants in every Dalek episode, kind of.
Well,
So
we just covered Power of the Doctor, and there was one in Power of the Doctor.
yeah,
Uh, there was a whole bunch of things that happened. Tegan was in Power of the Doctor. Tegan in this episode. I think this is a very timely episode to watch,
yeah,
considering the episode we just watched.
and also speaking of Dalek mutants in Jodie Whittaker's first Dalek story, Resolution, a Dalek mutant pretty much spends the majority of the episode outside his casing. So
Yeah.
yeah, Dalek mutants show up in the modern series pretty much all the time. I think I've got some of the pictures here a bit mixed up. So by this point, all three versions of the Doctor that have been taken realize where they are: the Death Zone on Gallifrey. They instantly recognize the Dark Tower, which is the tomb of Rassilon, where Lord President Rassilon is buried. And we also get intermediate cuts in between the Death Zone and the High Council chamber, where we see Lord President Barusa, which I believe was last seen in Arc of Infinity, the first episode of the season that just ended prior to this special. We also see Chancellor Flavier. I'm pretty sure we also saw her in that episode as well. And currently an unnamed Castellan. I don't remember if that they actually name dropped who that Castellan was, but I mean he dies in the episode, so it doesn't really matter. And obviously they're having
R.I.P. By the way, R.I.P.
R.I.P. Castellan, whatever.
Hmm.
They're having a meeting with the Master of all people. They're asking the Master to go into the Death Zone to rescue the Doctor, promising him a full regeneration cycle. Because as fans of Doctor Who know at this point, the Master, by that point in the story, has exhausted all of his regenerations, and he's sort of living on borrowed time in a stolen body, which is the Anthony Ainley Master. So the prospect of a new regeneration cycle, pretty tempting for the Master. And also, by around that point, First Doctor and Susan find the TARDIS. And also around that point, this is when the Third Doctor meets up with Sarah Jane, and they start traveling together. And inside the TARDIS, the First Doctor encounters his fifth incarnation in this the usual funny and fun moment of uh, a doctor past and a doctor present interacting with each other, and the companions are being completely confused about everything that's happening. They finally they analyze the three entrances of the Dark Tower and decide to go there. In the meantime, Third Doctor and Sarah Jane encounter the Master, who recently entered the Death Zone, where the Doctor steals the seal of the High Counselor from the Master because he refuses to believe that the Master was actually there to help him. This is actually a pretty interesting plot point because somehow it made it all the way to Matt Smith's final episode, where he just pulls the seal from a pocket. That apparently he kept it in his pocket for 8 incarnations, sorry, 9 incarnations somehow.
Yeah.
Like he went through from the Third Doctor all the way to the end of the classic series, all through everything that the Eighth Doctor went through, all of the Time War, and everything that the 11th Doctor did, and just pulled it out in Time of the Doctor. It's one of the weirdest, like, member berries that Stephen Moffat has ever done on the show. But that's minor tangent aside. Bessie gets herself blown up. There's some Cybermen in the Death Zone now, so the Third Doctor and Sarah Jane have to find their own way to reaching the Dark Tower. Meantime, Fifth Doctor, Susan, and Tegan encounter the Master themselves. They're being attacked by Cybermen. Go back to the TARDIS. Fifth Doctor abandons the Master, goes back to Gallifrey, and realizes that oops, the Master was actually telling the truth the whole time, twice, and I didn't believe him. And then obviously the Fifth Doctor stays on Gallifrey and the capital for the majority of the episode, trying to uncover the conspiracy of who actually sent all the other Doctors there. As we mentioned previously, the Castellan is framed and then killed. Then later in the episode, we find out that, surprise, surprise, spoiler alert, it wasn't really the Castellan. It was Barusa. Now, the significance here is that Barusa is not only a recurring character on the show at that point, appearing, I believe, all the way back from the Fourth Doctor era, but also he was the Doctor's favorite teacher in the Academy. So the reveal that he's actually the villain in this piece in the 20th anniversary was a big, major shock to viewers at the time. I'm not going to say that it's on the same level as the "I am your father" moment from Star Wars, but it was a major shock for audience at the time. And obviously, Barusa hasn't exactly been the most agreeable character on the show recently, but again, you find out that a guy you looked up to as a student stabs you in the back once he gets a little taste of power.
They seem to take it pretty well, though. So good for them. It's not like they were brokenhearted about it. They're, oh God.
Well,
Right.
they have a spare. They have a spare. Now, this is one of my favorite moments from the whole thing. Third Doctor and Sarah Jane trying to reach the tower, and they ran into a Rastan warrior robot. Well, what did you think? You like cheesy looking special effects. What do you think about this?
I loved it. I thought it was like it looked like a guy who's like a professional wrestler or a really bargain basement Spider-Man. Yeah, all of a sudden those things he just throws and he says he's. I loved how the first thing the Doctor says was how this guy they never miss or anything like that. The first thing the guy throws the weird spear at them and stuff and completely misses. It was like all right, but
No,
yeah.
he doesn't say that he doesn't say that they never miss. He just says it's the most perfect killing
Killing
machine
machine.
surprise. He
Right.
shoots,
And then
he,
missed.
no, he shoots the thing at them and misses, and then Sarah Jane asks, "What is it doing now?" And he says, he's playing with us.
Mm.
He missed on purpose because he wanted to scare them. He wanted to um, get the
That being
blood.
that being said, when he does actually hit a Cyberman and that Cyberman's head blows off, I started howling with laughter. I
He
thought that
just
was pretty funny.
he just goes right ahead and slaughters an entire squad.
Yeah,
And
and he would jump like he would just pop out of sight or whatever because they're talking about how fast he goes or whatever, and he'd be there in 1 second, and then you could see the obvious cut or whatever, and he is in there like, oh, look how fast this guy is. So funny.
it moves like lightning.
Hmm. Yeah.
He jumps, and then they just run away. Now, someone I believe actually did on YouTube did a sort of remakes of that whole scene
Right.
where it doesn't actually make that cut look good, but it makes it look a bit more presentable. Where
Okay.
he jumps and then he just drags the static figure of the robot really fast off screen to the other side. That's it is what it is. They filmed it in a very specific way.
Sure.
But yeah, I knew we were gonna get a major laugh out
Yeah,
of this.
but that's the stuff. That's the stuff I love about Doctor Who, like the absolute cheesiness of it, and that they just roll with it, and it's good. That's what
Exactly.
makes it fun.
Yeah, that's what was so good about that show. They knew the effects were cheap,
Yeah.
and they did not care. And again, look at their faces. They know how ridiculous this thing looks. I mean, look at it.
Spidey.
But they do what actors are supposed to do. They act. They pretend like it's a menacing war machine that could kill them in any given moment. So yeah, by the way, Rastan Warrior Robot developed on Tercerus. You know what
Oh,
the if you know what the planet Tercerus's significance in the Doctor Who realm, good for you. Now here's an interesting thing. They pretty much set it up that there are only three entrances, and even the second Doctor sings a nursery rhyme. Weird how in these uh, decade anniversary episodes, the nursery rhymes actually become real. But he sings a nursery rhyme about you got to choose which entrance you want to go enter the Dark Tower, above, between, below, and somehow three different Doctors cover all three different entrances without somehow meeting each other in the middle.
yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Now, inside the chamber, each Doctor faces a different uh, test, sort of. First Doctor with the electrified floor, and I say electrified. In the original, there was actually cheesy '80s lightning bolts hitting the Cybermen when that happened. And the
That's
new
what I
one,
got.
okay. Oh, really? Because in the one I watched on Britbox, I rewatched it for today's episode. It was just some weird green line thing.
Oh no, you got like a blue kind of. It almost looked like a laser coming down. Doot, 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 doot. Yeah.
So yeah, different versions to this whole thing. Weirdly enough, the Master actually tells the Doctor the secret of how to pass that
Yeah.
electrified. And then this is when I first saw this. This is the one scene that really blew my mind. They brought back returning characters for like half a scene, but
Hmm.
mainly to try to trick the Doctors. It was an illusion. We get to see the return of Richard Franklin as Mike Yates and Caroline John as Liz Shaw. And this is the one that really broke me. Fraser Hines as Jamie McLennan and Wendy Padbury as Zoe Harriet,
So
wearing blue
fun.
bubble wrap.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? She was literally wearing a dress made from blue bubble wrap.
No, I know. I noticed that they went for the sci-fi look or whatever, but I didn't notice that how bubble wrappy it was until just now. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, it looks like she can get packaged and sent through the mail now.
In Kablam.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's right.
obviously she always had these incredibly revealing sci-fi looking attires because she was from the far distant year in the far future of the year 2000. And also, minor side note, she's kind of wearing this dress because Wendy Pettigrew was pregnant at the time. So they were
Yeah.
really trying to, their damnedest to hide
Well, they did.
that. But yeah, the fact that the second Doctor actually remembers that these two couldn't be the real Jamie and Zoe because the Time Lords erased their memories actually suggests that this Doctor is after the War Game, which is actually his regeneration story.
Ooh.
How is that possible? Season 6B. Look it up. It's a rabbit hole. Now, obviously, all three doctors get past their individual tests with flying colors, one should say, and they finally reach the tomb of Rassilon, where they find this stone tablet with a writing on it written in Old High Gallifreyan. So not the usual, the current Gallifreyan language, which was mainly just these circles with other circles in them. This is Old High Gallifreyan, the ancient language of the Time Lords, which looks like this. And conveniently, the Doctor can read this language. Not many people can. Not even a lot of Gallifreyans can read Old High Gallifreyan, but the Doctor can.
Convenient.
Yeah, didn't that ever strike anyone as odd? Uh, don't you think?
Sorry, what's that?
Don't you think that's odd that the Doctor actually can read this ancient language?
Oh, I don't know. I figure he can go anywhere in time. He has, multiple years to go and learn any language. So nothing the doctor does ever surprises me.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's a language that even even Time Lords, a lot of Time Lords don't know. So
Hmm.
how does the Doctor know that language?
I think you're leading me towards something here. 50.
Yeah, you're not taking the bait. So why are you making this hard for me?
How does he know it? How does he know it?
Well, Mr. Snark, you see
Oh,
this part of the inscription right here
yeah.
that's marked with red?
Yes.
That is the Doctor's real name.
Oh.
Yep, the Doctor is actually mentioned in this stone tablet. And if you need a better look at it, this is pretty much what it says. So yeah, this right here, that's the Doctor's name. If you ever wonder what that is.
Okay.
Yeah, the Doctor's real name actually appearing in a stone tablet that's from the Dark Days inside Rassilon's tomb. That would kind of seem to suggest that the Doctor has some involvement in the early days of Gallifrey.
Mm-hmm.
The Timeless Child, perhaps?
Ooh.
Yeah, and people still to this day make the argument that the Timeless Child breaks canon. What do they know? So yeah, people saying that the worst part about the Timeless Child was that it made the Doctor too important in Gallifrey in old Time Lord history. Guess what? He already was. It was all there in the beginning. You just didn't want to see it.
It was right there in front of our faces.
Yeah, it was always there. It was always the plan, not necessarily the way it was executed in the Jodie Whittaker era, but it was always there. It was always the Doctor was always planned to be something bigger than people realized. But there's a lot of tangents in today's episode for some reason.
That's fine.
Anyways, they translate the inscription. The Brigadier finally gets to have his revenge on the Master after so many years. The Fifth Doctor realizes who the real villain of the piece is, which is Barusa, and I love how he did it. With the harp of Rassilon. First of all, Rassilon has a harp.
Yeah.
I guess we all know who invented that musical, and I believe actually someone could correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the harp is actually the first musical instrument mentioned in the Bible.
Really? Oh, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, I studied Bible in school, but I'm pretty sure that the harp is the first musical instruments ever in recorded human history.
Hmm.
So again, we know where that came from now. The Time Lords, because they invented everything.
Sounds right.
Yeah, sounds about right. And it makes sense that it would be Rassilon's favorite instrument. But anyways, I love that a musical key is also the key to the secret lair,
Hmm.
or rather, Barussa's man cave.
I like how they put the key in the painting or whatever. They just said, "Oh, it's right here. Anybody, if you know how to play a harp, you can get into this room."
Yeah, in case Barussa ever forgets how to enter his own secret chamber.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's fun.
uh, so Barussa wearing the coronet of Rassilon, which makes him able to control the Doctor now. And I love how he goes through a complete wardrobe change. He's wearing all black now. That has to mean he's evil, right?
Evil,
Yeah.
100%. I'm surprised he didn't grow a goatee.
No, that's for Star Trek.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, when Star Trek characters have their duplicates, if they have a beard, they're evil. But yeah,
Master has a goatee. He's evil. At least he used to.
I can't help but wonder if they actually. One could go either way. It could be just because that's how Roger Delgado looked at the time, and they thought it fit the character, or maybe they took that as a cue from Evil Spock from that Mirror episode from
Hmm.
the original Star Trek series. Who knows? But yeah, then Barusa finally reveals his true colors, black, reveals that this whole time he was after Rassilon's immortality. The doctors try to refuse him. They bring the Fifth Doctor into the fold, and none of it really matters because in traditional Doctor Who history, no matter after all this time, the villain's own ambitions is their own demise. Verusa is contacted by the spirit of Lord President Rassilon, takes the ring, and sort of gains immortality as a stone statue decorating Rassilon's tomb, proving once and for all that Rassilon was a lion's son of a bee.
Yeah. It
Even in
was the
death.
first. It was the first Doctor though that pointed out. Like everyone was saying, like, "Do you guys think that Marusa here should have immortality?" And they're like, "No, no." And then he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I think he deserves it." That was the first Doctor saying, "Give this man immortality." He knew what was up. He knew what was going to happen.
Yeah,
The other guys didn't think did.
because even though he's the first, he's also technically the oldest, kind of the
Right.
oldest and the wisest in a way, in a weird way. And also he realized what the part of the inscription said: to lose is to win, and he who wins shall lose.
Yep. I
And
did like those faces when they came out, though. That was another favorite part where they're just wearing those. It's basically just a clear mask, and they all had the red eyes, which was kind of bugging me and stuff too. But just looking around and stuff, was like, "We're fucked. We're fucked." Yeah, I enjoyed that.
and I was clearly indicating that Russo is not the only one who
Hmm.
wanted to gain immortality. There
Yep.
were others. Now, once again, you have to jump into some um, um, expanded universe type stuff in the novel Engines of War, which is a War Doctor novel. It's revealed that this was not the end of the story for Barusa, because during the late years of the Time War, after Rassilon was resurrected to lead the war effort, he also experimented with a lot of other dead Time Lords, and the most successful of those experiments was Barusa, turning him into what's known as a possibility engine. What a possibility engine is basically he just tied him up to a rectangular frame where Barusa kept changing in and out of his own personal incarnations, the ones that he had and the ones he has yet to have, the ones he may never have, the ones he never was supposed to have, just kept changing from one incarnation to another all the time. and he gained the ability to see all of time and every possibility, every possible future, every outcome, every anything. And Barusa kept him in his tomb in the Dark Tower as sort of a way to predict the best way to win the war in any given situation. So, and obviously, then the War Doctor and his companion Cinder then stole him from the Dark Tower and threw him into the Tantalus Eye to erase the Dalek operations in the Tantalus Spiral, saving the destroyed planet of Moldox. It's a really good novel. Highly recommend so far. And I haven't read a lot of these, but so far it's my favorite Doctor Who novel.
Oh,
But and that's pretty high praise from me. But yeah, that was it for Barusa. The other Doctors get to say their goodbyes. We get some nice, fun moments with past companions, with other Doctors. I like the moment with Sarah Jane and the John Purvey being a little playful with her, and they all go back into the TARDIS. TARDIS is then separate. Each Doctor then goes back to their own unique time.
yeah, I loved that TARDIS scene, by the way, where it's just a static picture and then it just drifting off each time. I love that stuff.
And again, this is the newer version. In the original, it just goes back to the triangle thing. It just sends the different Doctors on their way. So yeah, they changed that. Speaking of changes, that whole scene inside the tomb, heavily edited. They cut a lot of stuff out, which I was not a fan of. I liked some of those other scenes that they cut out, and also Rassilon's voice. For some reason, they changed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the original, it was much more ominous and booming, and I thought that voice was hell of a lot better than the voice we got in the newer version.
I was thoroughly underwhelmed by the voice of Rassilon. Just even the look at him and stuff with the weird mustache and stuff. Yeah, and
Well,
the weird
sadly, that
hat.
wasn't the original. Sadly, they couldn't fix that in the
No.
original. But I'll send you a link to some of those scenes with the shots that they cut out. And also, speaking of editing scenes, pretty much the entire Tom Baker stuff was edited because, and
Yeah.
this is really where the smartness of the BBC people. So in Tom Baker's penultimate season, the final episode was Shada was incomplete for a very long time. There was some disputes with some people over at the BBC, and there was a big strike, and they just refused to continue working for a few weeks, which unfortunately happened with around the time of the filming of Shada, Tom Baker's final episode, and unfortunately, a lot of that episode was just cut. So the episode never aired in its entirety,
Hmm.
and for many years it was just in a sort of limbo state. There have been several different versions of that episode ever since. One where just Tom Baker narrating the moments that were supposed to be shots but never did.
Right.
Then they did a big finish version, this time with the Eighth Doctor doing the part of the Fourth Doctor, and it was basically just the entire storyline as it is. Just replace a Fourth Doctor with the Eighth Doctor. And recently, fairly recently, Shada finally got its proper treatment and released the way that it's supposed to. They just animated the scenes that they didn't shot with Tom Baker and Lala Ward and John Leeson as the Doctor, Romana, and K9, respectively, and just trying to complete the episode as best they could under the current circumstances. But the fact that the episode itself never aired gave the BBC an excuse to take all the footage, rather some of the footage, from that episode and insert it into this episode.
Okay.
All the scenes that you see Tom Baker and Romana there, that's all from Shada. It was shot for a completely different episode and cleverly inserted into this one. And I believe in the original, you don't really see much of Tom Baker. You just see that part of him in the gondola and
Right.
not the whole conversation of him and Romana in the gondola. Just the bit right before he gets snatched away, and that's really all you can see of him. They added a longer version of him in the gondola, and then they added that scene at the end of him uh, dropping on the floor and running inside the TARDIS and closing the door with the scarf still on the outside. Do you have any final thoughts you want to say about this episode that we just talked about?
Not much to wrap it up. I think we've gone through it. Yeah, you can tell. You could tell that the Tom Baker stuff was independent of anything they were doing in this episode for sure. It's like I think they could have easily have just called it the Four Doctors and just not have them involved at all. It would not have changed the story one bit. Uh, but other than that, it's a fun episode. I didn't dislike it. I just prefer myself the Three Doctors better. But it's always if I see K9, I'm gonna be pretty happy. K9 and Sarah Jane same time, him and K9 calling her mistress. Oh yeah, the best. Uh,
Danger, mistress, danger.
so good. I wish he would have shot a couple Satanists though. That would have made it way better.
Something that not a lot of people talk about Sarah Jane in this episode. She completely loses this raincoat that she's wearing, and then later the jacket. She just gets up and leaves it in the dark tower
Well,
and walks away.
it was the '80s. That thing happened all the time. You just left jackets places. It was a different time.
Sure, I guess.
It was in the style of the time, being a jacket
And,
litterer.
and Sarah Jane is very uh, stylish. A
Oh,
couple other notes I wanted to point out. First of all, first and only time Sarah Jane has ever encountered the Master
oh, really?
in any version of the show. She Now, obviously, for tragic reasons, Roger Delgado had already passed away by the time Sarah Elizabeth Sladen joined the show, so she didn't have any Master episodes during her time with the Third Doctor or the Fourth Doctor. And actually, her last episode, The Hand of Fear, that was the episode where she left. The immediate next episode is The Deadly Assassin, which is where the Skeletal Master shows up, the
Right.
Peter Pratt Master. And obviously, Sarah Jane, out of the show for many, many years, she got a glimpse at the Master in The Five Doctors, and then she never saw really had any interaction with the Master during the Russell T Davies or Stephen Moffat eras
No.
at all. And now maybe Big Finish will change that because they like to do stuff. But also another interesting part about this episode, John Pertwee never had a Cybermen story in his entire run. Now again, like I said, Big Finish came in and changed that. They gave the Third Doctor a proper Cybermen story in audio form with Tim Treloar as the Third Doctor. But basically, this is the only time where the Third Doctor has actually battled against Cybermen on the television series.
Huh.
So really, really important to point out there. I think we talked about all about the other doctors. We went on a tangent about this guy.
Sure.
Uh,
10-pointer.
I forgot about that. That's a really cool picture. But yeah, the episode itself ends obviously with Chancellor Flavier, once again giving the Doctor the position of Lord President of Gallifrey, something that once again was picked up on Big Finish years and years later. But in the context of this episode, he tells Flavier to go back to Gallifrey with the transmat beam while he travels back to the capital in the TARDIS. And while the companions, Turlo and Tegan, initially think that's it for them, that they're never going to see him again, he reassures them, saying that he's basically going to run away again, because that worked out for him pretty well last time. And I love the way the episode ends, is that Tegan tells him, you're deliberately choosing to go on the run from your own people in a raggedy old TARDIS. And he just looks at the camera and says, why not? After all, that's how it all started. And obviously we do see the consequences of the Doctor shirking off his presidential duties in his sixth incarnation. That is a story for another time. So, yeah, think that that's it for our five Doctor discussions. If you don't have anything else you want to say about this episode, we can just say our plugs and goodbye.
Uh, this is the first time I remember seeing, like, I must have seen some Peter Davidson episodes before, but this is the first. This is the first episode I've seen of him in a while. I enjoy him as the Doctor. I can't wait to go through some more Fifth Doctor episodes. Yeah, I sure wish they would have had at least a scene with Tom Baker in the show with the other doctors. I think it takes away from it a little bit, but yeah, overall, yeah, it's a really enjoyable episode. Yeah, there we go. We can have his weekend at Bernie moment there.
Yeah, and that's still something that never happened in the 30th anniversary, which we really do not need to talk about on this show. But in that anniversary, once again, we see the Doctors switching from one incarnation to the other between the third, fifth, sixth, and seventh Doctors, and Tom Baker is just in a completely different place doing his own different thing. In the 50th anniversary, well, he wasn't even in the 40th anniversary, Zagreus. In that one, we actually do get the third Doctor, who's already passed away years before, the fifth Doctor, sixth Doctor, seventh Doctor, and eighth Doctors. The 50th, we get the 10th, 11th, and War Doctor.
Hmm.
And then we see the fourth Doctor, or rather Tom Baker, as the curator. We can
Right.
see any of the other Doctors. And even in the more recent Power of the Doctor, we see David Bradley as the first. Obviously, we get to see Fugitive Doctor, Jodie as the 13th Doctor. We get to see David Tennant as the 14th Doctor-ish. And then we also have the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Doctors. So it's always been a weird wibbly wobbly thing with the Fourth Doctor. I believe kind of the only time that the Fourth Doctor has ever actually been with another Doctor was the Matt Smith one. And if you want to include Big Finish, he also did an episode with the 10th Doctor.
Right.
I mean, the 10th Doctor did one with the 4th, 5th, and 6th. We're getting way off topic talking about but the thing, what I'm actually trying to say is it's always been a weird stretch with getting the Fourth Doctor to sort of play nice with the other Doctor. Let's just put it that way.
That's too bad.
So anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Snark, where can the good people find you?
Oh, well, I'm a very boring follow at Snark Yeti on Twitter because I do nothing except for like things that my friends put on there usually. You can find me Tuesdays here at Northern Entertainment Network with Have You Seen This? The TV show I do with our ghostly buddy Dave and Dan, even though Dan has been captured by Disney and probably I don't know if he's even alive anymore. They do
Maybe,
terrible things to people.
maybe Disney sent him to the death zone.
You're right. Yeah, he might be a part of Rassilon's crypt there. Of course, you were on this. Oh
What
my
if
goodness,
this is Dave?
Spider-Man.
What if this is Daniel?
You never know. It would fit. We're about the same size. You were on the previous episode we did this week about the power of the Doctor. A lot of fun. Uh, Dave was mysteriously kidnapped. It seems during the middle of that episode as well. So,
I had nothing to
please,
do with it.
yeah, please say nice things about a certain Orlando-based corporation, entertainment corporation. Other than that, you can find me lots of things over at LGR Network as well. We have a new sports show there. Well, I'm doing a show called The Starting 11, a soccer show about the British Premier League. You can follow it on YouTube, LGR_highlights to find those kind of things. Nothing more British than the Premier League and Doctor Who, if you ask me. Maybe fish and chips.
And let me just correct you. It's football, not soccer.
That's right.
And
Well, I was saying this to North American audience. I didn't want to confuse them.
yeah, they got enough on their mind. So,
Ooh,
as for me, you can find me on my YouTube channel. I'm a very boring person. Also, just wanted to point that out first. But I have my own YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek, where I do weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way up to 2022, as well as some other random stuff whenever I have time for it. Every Monday, I'm right here talking about the greatest show in the galaxy, Doctor Who, and every Saturday, I'm with my good buddies Soda and Ben on the Northern Countdown, talking about some random stuff. And as Snark mentioned, I was previously on last week, because remember this goes live on Monday. I was on last week's episode of Have You Seen This? Talking about the power of the Doctor, uh, the last hurrah, I should say, for Jodie
sure.
Whittaker. So thank you all for watching. If you have, next week we'll be talking some more anniversary shenanigans with the modern take on a decade anniversary, Day of the Doctor. But that's all in the future as far as I'm concerned. So I will bid you all goodbye and stay well clear of mysteriously looking flying triangles in the sky. Bit of advice. Goodbye.